finally, after what feels like 6 years, I'm finally making another one. The reason I wasn't making videos lately, because, I just didn't want to make any. I had hundreds of opportunities. I said, I'm going to make a video today. I'm going to make a video today. Even probably posting on Twitter like 20 times, I'm going to make a video today. Yet I still have not made a video today. So I'm going to try to make a few videos all this week. Try to catch up on stuff I missed, maybe. And if anything cool happens, well, we can talk about that. But right now, we're going to jump into something you probably already know about, but, maybe you don't, maybe you do. The original video is going to be in the description if you want to check it out for your own, and hear your own little audio quality or whatever. Because, mine's going to be like trash, like freaking 240p. Max video quality. But today we're going to be talking about the SCP Foundation. Now, I've been looking at the SCP Foundation for a few months now. Like since quarantine not ended, but basically since school started, I started looking at it. And I got really interested in it. I really enjoy it. Like greatly enjoy it. I love learning about all this stuff. I love going on the wiki and reading article upon article upon article, because there's like thousands of articles based on SCPs, and I love just about all of them. Well, not really. Some I really don't like, and others I do. But Jesus Christ, this is such a good dang on series. Who are the masterminds behind this SCP thing? All the way back in 2007. It's 2021 and they're still going. New SCPs are being made just about every day. God dang, bro. Hopefully one day I might be able to make a video about the my own little video talking about the SCP Foundation. I don't know, it might not get any views, but who cares? Well, what are we sitting here waiting for? Let's just watch the freaking video, guys. Turn this up so you can hear it.
Disclosed location, a woman.
Also, I will try to be talking a lot throughout this whole entire thing, okay? So don't be scared.
Is being tortured. The methods of her abuse are too horrific to be described, and her torturers are death row prison inmates, the absolute worst of the worst. This woman's torture is constant, and procedures are put into place to make sure she never becomes accustomed to the pain. If ever her torturers express sympathy toward their victim, their superiors will have them removed and replaced. If they try to rescue her or put her out of her misery, they themselves will be shot without hesitation. The woman being tortured is known only as SCP-231-7.
The SCP-231-7. That is a pretty confusing name that I will probably never remember. But, dude, it's so crazy because it's there's so much. There's in the 30 seconds, there was already so much information that was gathered. I don't really know much about this SCP in per general. But the death row inmates, I guess that's why they call them D-class. Because they're death row. D-death, It makes sense though.
And worst of all, she's pregnant. The cause of her eternal torture? The SCP Foundation. And you'll be shocked to learn that when all is said and done, these are the good guys. Because if they ever stop their brutal treatment of SCP-231-7, a treatment codenamed Procedure 110 Montauk, she'll give birth to a creature that will destroy the world as we know it. This is just one of the many examples of the objects and entities under the watchful eyes of the SCP Foundation, a mysterious group that strives to achieve greater good by any means necessary, and we do mean any. What you're about to hear is above classified, and be warned, what is heard can never be unheard, unless...
That's what I really love about the SCP thing. It's holy crap. This is all science fiction. But Jesus, I love going into this. And I love how the freaking URL, they got boy in it. That might just be the greatest part of this video. They got boy in the freaking YouTube. the YouTube URL. Holy crap, that's actually cool. But it's
Of
like
course, the
anything
Foundation
can be an
gets its hands
SCP.
on.
That's the
So,
scariest
what
part.
is the SCP Foundation? In the most basic sense, the group's mission statement is right there in the SCP acronym. Secure, contain, protect. It's the task of the Foundation to, in their own words, contain anomalous objects, entities, and phenomena. Things that don't make sense, things that don't belong, things that simply don't fit in with our...
know. How do they contain phenomenons? Like freaking time going backwards at random moments, or like time speeding up at random moments. Like, how do they contain that? It's pretty strange.
Perception of
Unless they
reality,
can.
and some things that pose an existential threat to all human life. They refer to these contained anomalies as SCPs, each of which is accompanied by a number. This is a broad umbrella, as an SCP can range from benign or even actively helpful to downright apocalyptic if ever released. Much like the infamous Men in Black often reported by
Again,
witnesses in
how do
connection
they
with
secure
alien
those
sightings,
guys?
the Foundation works in secret.
Like, how do they secure people who can literally destroy the world if they wanted to? Like, how were they able to contain them in the first place, dude? That's crazy. I'm gonna have to read about it.
To maintain a sense of normalcy at all costs, knowing the chaos it would cause if any of the anomalies they're harboring ever become public. Take, for example, SCP-500. To the untrained eye, the object is just an unassuming prescription pill bottle, the kind you'd see in medicine cabinets the world over. But the pills in this humble bottle are unlike any earthly medicine. They can cure quite literally anything, from cancer to a cold, within 2 hours. But at the time of this writing, there are only 47 pills left, the power to cure all disease.
You know, there's actually a lot of comedy in this. It's funny, because it's got one little note that says, what was it again? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Under no circumstances, do not use SCP-500 to cure hangovers. Get AIDS, then use SCP-500. That's funny. Dude, people were going in there, they were stealing it. They were asking the O5 Council for it. And hopefully they talk about them here, because I don't want to have to spend like 5 minutes discussing what the heck they are. Dude, it's crazy stuff.
A privilege denied to even the richest and most powerful in society. A veritable holy grail.
I heard that mid-roll ads, they're the worst types. Mid-roll ads that you can't skip, those are even worse. Like the freaking
if you vape, you could be inhaling toxic
right here.
metals into your lungs. Just show how scary that is.
This commercial right here. I hate it.
But nothing is as scary
I
as
hate
the
this
facts.
commercial, dude.
Vaping can
Keep
deliver
showing
toxic
up,
metals
my
like
nigga.
nickel
You're on
and lead into your
YouTube.
lungs.
Get out of here. You Will Smith wanna be. If he was a black man, look at that. Get out of here. Jesus Christ.
Can you imagine the violence and horror that would break out in trying to obtain them if their existence ever became public? The SCP Foundation works in secret because the collective mind of society just couldn't handle the knowledge of what they're dealing with. They work with the approval of all world governments, effectively placing them above international law. Essentially, there is no human authority above the Foundation, because without the Foundation's work, there would be no humans left to govern. To understand the basic operations of this above top-secret organization, we need to delve a little further into that secure, contain, protect slogan. Secure refers to the Foundation's practice of constant global surveillance and observation in order to detect and intercept anomalous activity before it can interact with civilians or rival groups. Contain involves preventing the effects or influence of the anomaly from spreading by either, in their own words, relocating, concealing, or dismantling such anomalies, or by suppressing or preventing public dissemination of knowledge thereof. The latter can involve practices such as using advanced chemical compounds or technologies to delete and then rewrite the memories of infected civilians, or even committing mass murder if necessary to cover their tracks. The SCP Foundation has in the past wiped out entire towns of innocent civilians to prevent dangerous information about the SCP.
Necessarily military organization, like a government organization, like thingy, conspiracies or none of that. I mean, if it was conspiracy, then I'll be scared of it. Because it's like, bruh, if one of them breaks loose, we're all dead. Depending on what it is, we are all dead. But That scared me.
Spreading beyond their control. They can take lives at their own discretion and consider almost any crime to be permissible when the alternative is Armageddon. And finally, protect pertains to all operations meant to protect mankind from the SCPs, up to and including neutralizing and destroying them when possible. Some SCPs, such as the infamous SCP-682, a nigh indestructible genocidal reptilian, have proved to be almost impossible to destroy. Research is ongoing in many cases as the Foundation explores any and all possible methods of reducing the threat of more dangerous SCPs in order to help them categorize.
See? And that's the scary part in this. Some of these freaking SCPs, again, just as I said, they can destroy the entire world if they wanted to. Like the 682 that we're talking about. That man cannot be killed. They try like 11 ways to kill him. But no matter what, he just cannot die. He's just too dang on powerful. And you know, if he breaks containment and gets out to the public, we will all be dead. Because this man cannot be stopped. Let's
Whereas the thousands of strange and horrifying anomalies under their watch, the Foundation has created a system that organizes the SCPs based on the difficulty of containing them. The first of the primary object classes is Safe, pertaining to SCPs that require.
Again, it means to the difficulty to contain them. Everyone who first jumps into this thinks that means how dangerous they are. So it means they will not pose any threat. Euclid means they might pose a threat. A Keter means they pose a big threat. But no, they mean how easy they are to contain. Safe is like items like the 860, the blue key. Basically, if I sit it in a room by itself, nothing else, it's just gonna stay in that room and do absolutely nothing, then it's safe. It poses like a minimum threat to humanity, then it's safe. If I sit in a room and it starts freaking picking stuff up or randomly moving things around, then it's a Euclid, because we don't fully understand why the heck it's doing that. But if the freaking thing tries to, let's say it tries to pick something up like a bed or something, and then throw it at the door, try to break the door open, then that's Keter. You know, he really wants to get out. He don't like being what's about that container cell, but hey, you know, he has to. So I discussed it, let him discuss it.
Require little, if any, resources to safely and properly contain. Examples include the previously mentioned SCP-500 pill bottle and SCP-999, a benevolent blob of gelatinous orange matter. SCP-999 has a playful, almost dog-like personality. It causes feelings of happiness and euphoria in whoever or whatever it touches. It's even been used by the Foundation as a pacification tool to reduce aggression in other SCPs. The second primary object class is Euclid, which refers to any anomaly that requires more resources to contain completely or where containment isn't always reliable. This is the broadest SCP class, and the majority of sentient, sapient, or autonomous anomalies fall into this category. A Euclid SCP might be something as huge, sprawling, and bizarre as SCP-3008. This SCP appears to be a kind of anomalous pocket dimension hidden inside an IKEA superstore, which is not only significantly larger on the inside by approximately 10 kilometers, but also contains bizarre, faceless entities which can become hostile under the right conditions. A Euclid SCP can also be something as seemingly innocuous as SCP-294, which appears to the untrained eye to be a standard coffee vending machine.
Ooh.
However, unlike any
Bro, they need to copy that damn thing and distribute it to all over the world. You're gonna hear what it does, and you're gonna see why.
other coffee machine, the input system on SCP-294 is a QWERTY keyboard. This SCP can manifest any liquid typed in on the keyboard, from standard drinks like coffee and beer to more esoteric compounds like sulfuric acid and disease-infected human blood. During extensive tests, one subject requested the perfect...
Dude, that's crazy. It's basically dispense whatever you want. So if I wanted a freaking Sprite with Mountain Dew, milk, coffee, and soybeans inside of it, anything is possible. But Mountain Dew, coffee, Sprite, and soybeans inside of it, and it will turn all that into liquid, and then you can drink it. Like holy crap! Just as you say, even things that aren't normally like in a solid state. I don't think he said that yet, but even things that are in a solid state can be turned into a liquid. So basically, he's defying the laws of whatever we know. Like, we know that it's like very difficult to get metal into a liquid state. I mean, don't you have to put in like 300, I mean, not 300, like a couple thousand degrees Celsius to melt metal? Like, you gotta be hot, 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 hot. And in the SCP game, you can be able to what's it called, like freaking put lava in a cup, and then he drinks it. You're not gonna drink the pee, but you're gonna drink the lava. How stupid are you?
Drink and was given an odorless lavender-colored liquid. After consuming the liquid, the subject went into a state of euphoric shock. The subject later committed suicide, leaving a note which read, "I'm sorry, but at this point everything's just one big letdown." Sadly, subjects dying during tests is not uncommon. The SCP found
The drink was so good, my man died. He's like, nothing can beat this drink. Nothing is better than this drink, dude.
Foundation essentially has limitless resources, including access to countless disposable workers and test subjects. The most common of these are so-called D-class personnel, which are death row inmates conscripted for the purposes of often lethal SCP experimentation or containment. The next primary object class is Keter, described by the Foundation as anomalies that are exceedingly difficult to contain consistently or reliably, with containment procedures often being extensive and complex. This can either be due to being an extremely volatile and dangerous anomaly or just one that seems to defy known laws of physics or reality, and is thus extremely difficult to understand or contain. The SCP Foundation has a vast number of secret facilities across the globe, and while the Keter-class SCPs are not nearly as common as the Euclid-class,
even though they're all over the world, no one in their freaking universe knows about them unless
consume a great deal more resources to safely contain. One particularly terrifying Keter-class SCP is SCP-354, colloquially known by the Foundation employees as the Blood Pond. This SCP is a large pool of non-biological red liquid discovered in North Canada that appears to be a kind of interdimensional primordial soup. What makes this SCP particularly hard to contain, as well as extremely frightening, is the fact that hostile entities periodically emerge from the pond and must be neutralized before they can escape the containment area. These entities have included a floating black sphere that can fire concentrated beams of deadly radiation, a 15-foot-tall reptilian humanoid that seemed immune to gunfire, and a homicidal metallic humanoid nicknamed the Terminator by Foundation personnel. The most highly classified primary object class of all is Thaumiel, which consists of SCPs used to contain other SCPs. This can range from SCP-7000-J, a book of Latin incantations bound in dinosaur skin that can summon various other entities, all the way to SCP-4006, which is the entire state of Massachusetts. Thaumiel-class SCPs are the most bizarre and esoteric of the anomalies dealt with by the Foundation, but thankfully, they often pose less of an active threat than many of the Euclid or Keter-class SCPs. Finally, as mentioned earlier, sometimes the SCP Foundation deems an anomaly too dangerous to contain and just needs to destroy it entirely. A terrifying example of a neutralized SCP, and a perfect illustration for just how strange and abstract the anomalies dealt with by the Foundation can be, is SCP-4991. This SCP manifested as a series of bizarre posts across a number of websites about an apocalyptic event that seemed to be occurring on a different layer of reality, and seemed to indicate that a kind of deadly parasitic and carnivorous insect was spreading like wildfire across the globe, causing death and destruction in their wake. The SCP Foundation neutralized SCP-4991 by tracking down, containing, and erasing all infected posts across the internet before it could spread too far. Who knows what would have happened if the Foundation hadn't intervened? As is often the case with SCPs, it's probably best just not to think about it. The actual structure of the SCP Foundation is surprisingly transparent, with personnel classification.
It's like always, every situation, it looks like they have a 1 in a million chance of getting out of there and doing the right thing, and it's like somehow they just do it. Somehow they just do the right thing.
levels ranging from Class A to Class E. Class A personnel are considered vital to the strategic operations of the Foundation and therefore are not allowed to be in direct contact in any way with any of the SCPs due to potential risks. Class B personnel are vital to local Foundation operations on SCP test sites and are only permitted to be in contact with SCPs deemed to be relatively safe.
And they're like the CIA, FBI, you know, all of the secretaries, the governments of the departments.
Class C personnel are field agents that have far more direct contact with the SCPs and often put
And then we're like the Class C, like the government of state
themselves at great risk in doing so. Class D personnel, as previously mentioned,
Class D are like citizens of the state.
Are essentially cannon fodder thrown into the jaws of death to discover more about the more dangerous anomalies on the SCP roster. And finally, Class E.
I'm sorry, it's like 1004 where I live. And then Class E, they're like, how do I explain them? They're like immigrants, maybe.
Personnel are personnel that have been
Like
already
Lord
exposed to the
and
potentially dangerous effects of an unknown anomaly. Class E personnel are placed into quarantine until they're deemed fit to return to work or terminated, depending on the results of their observations. In terms of actual roles in the SCP Foundation, the top of the pyramid are the O5 Council members, Class A personnel who have total clearance and oversee all Foundation operations. Below them are Site Directors, who manage the various physical Foundation facilities across the globe and report back to the O5 Council. On-site, researchers and containment specialists work together to better understand and combat the anomalies being housed at their particular facility. They're kept safe by the hard work of veteran security and tactical response officers ready to lay down their lives to prevent more dangerous SCPs from ever escaping and reaching developed areas. In the event that an SCP does breach containment and escape or a new one is discovered, field operatives are dispatched by the Foundation to get the situation under control. These will consist of field agents who already operate across the globe and specialized mobile task force operatives. The SCP Foundation has eyes and ears everywhere. Their organization is influential and is embedded in every facet of society, ready to strike and suppress an emerging anomaly before any ripples of its existence can reach the wider world. Even here, we've only really scratched the surface of the SCP Foundation's extensive and frankly mind-boggling global and historical operations. There's plenty of information about the Foundation online, many of which people assume is pure fiction, but wouldn't that be the perfect cover for a real secret organization wanting to cover its tracks? As the quote says, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he doesn't exist. Ultimately, the SCP Foundation is on the side of mankind, but that doesn't mean it'll always act in our best interests. After all, if it means preserving the peace and getting another anomaly under wraps, the Foundation won't hesitate to terminate you and everyone you know without a second thought. Whether you'd want to face off against the Foundation itself or one of the anomalies they wish to contain is ultimately up to you, but trust us, neither would end well for you. Oh, speaking of which, there's another SCP we forgot to mention that's quite literally unspeakable. SCP-2521 is a creature that's made entirely of strange black tendrils that envelop and smother the creature's prey. No written records of the creature exist outside of pictograms because it immediately attacks and consumes any information produced about it. This includes speech, as the creature will appear and consume anyone who… Oh god. Oh no, it's here. It's here, help me! Ah! Pay no mind to what you just witnessed. I, the infographics show narrator, am perfectly fine. We now recommend you watch Russian Sleep Experiment Explained and How a Meme Slender Man Became Real. Pay no more thought to what you've just seen or heard. Thank you.
I will not. I will not, to my good sir. Well, that's the end of it. And I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe to the channel. You know, that would really help me out. You know, guys. I haven't made a video in what feels like forever, so you know, that really makes me feel better if you like. You know, makes me feel like I'm still relevant in this goddamn world. And I hope you enjoyed. And I'm gonna try to make another one tomorrow, okay? We'll go into a new video based on SCPs if you would like that. No, if you like that, then please hit the like button. You know what I said, subscribe. And I love you all, and GG's. Good night.